you for you. This time with Sean Underwood. He is running this race for the second time now. You may remember he was a rookie in last year's race, but was a part of a group that ran into some overflow and unfortunately had to scratch that year, but he's back at it again. So we wanted to check in with Sean and see how it's going this year so far.
Feel like it's day 3 of Iditarod and ready for a nap, but today was a good day, so we'll start with there.
Sure, and Sean hasn't had a chance to rest himself yet, but how are the dogs doing as far as recovery so far?
Pretty good. A couple dogs not eating like I'd want them to, but overall they've been eating pretty darn well, and I think that they are ready for the 24 as much as I am.
And so tell us a little bit about, you were out on the trail last year through all of this stretch. How does this year compare to last for you?
I definitely feel like to this point it's a little bit harder. The gorge I just heard what happened to Allie like 30 minutes ago, so that I saw like her headlamp just like eerily sitting on the river turned on, and I was like, I wonder what happened there. So then I proceeded to fall in the exact same spot without concussing myself, although it may sound like I'm talking like I'm concussed. But the gorge was a little bit more challenging, and the Happy River steps, when you get 900 miles into the Iditarod like last year, the Happy River steps feel like so long ago that you're just like, that wasn't even that hard of a run. And then you get back to it the next year and you forgot about it completely. It's actually it's a pretty darn challenging section of trail. So it's just kind of like a reminder, because I only remember how the last third of my race went last year. This first third is not to be trifled with. It had a lot of challenges for sure.
And of course, you're going to be going back over all of those same stretches. How are you feeling about that?
Not stoked. But I'm just trying to tell myself that future Sean will figure that out. That's not till like Friday or something. So I still got to get to Iditarod. So I'll just worry about getting to Iditarod and then getting back to over and then getting back here, and then maybe we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, both literally and metaphorically, because literally there was a bunch of bridges over water crossings on there that were, firstly, beautifully constructed. Just want to say that to the trail crew. And secondly, there wasn't much room for error there. You really got to nail that bridge perfectly. But yeah, I'm definitely not pumped to hit some of those sections, but you can't be sitting dwelling about that. You just got to focus on the next task.
Right, because for as much as you can plan, weather, things can change at any moment, and you kind of have to be reevaluating constantly.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back over, that's assuming that I'm going to get through the next 200 miles without a hitch. That's pretty presumptuous. Obviously, it's not even a guarantee that I get back to Roan, so I just got to get there first, and then if and when that happens, then I can worry then and have that. It'll be a good problem to have if I get to that point, Yeah.
So for our viewers at home, when you say when you go over a bridge you have to nail it, what do you mean exactly? What goes into that?
Yeah, I was going at like 3 in the morning. I don't even know what time it was. Firstly, side note, I was mushing up towards the gorge and I heard a helicopter in the air, and I was like, is there a military base nearby? And I don't know about helicopters very, very much, but I wasn't a Black Hawk last year, so that kind of makes me an expert. And I'm pretty sure that was Black Hawk-ish from what I heard up there. And I was just wondering, what's going on? And then I just heard that was Allie's ride. So that just was a cool story. I wanted to say that. It's not the question you asked, though. The bridges are it's middle of the night, so you don't see the bridge until your team is, because you're twisting and turning and going through woods and creeks, and next thing you know your team is halfway across the bridge and you're like, oh, and the bridge is this wide. And there was a couple of bridges that have a 5-foot drop into a hollow creek, because the creek didn't freeze I asked somebody the other day, what creek was that we were on? They were like, it's the Dalzell Creek. And I was like, oh, that's why they call it the Dalzell Gorge. Okay, now I get that. But the creek didn't freeze very well. Like, I don't think it really ever does. And so the like banks of the creek are like literally as tall as my hands are, and then the middle of it concaved in. So it's just like a 5-foot hole and a bridge going over, like right across it. So if like you tip over, your sled's wrecked. You know, you don't, God forbid, a dog doesn't go over that section. You really have to like just trust your athletic instinct on that. And you know, it's one of those things where you're like, now that I know that it's there, I'm gonna be thinking about it constantly. But when I didn't know that it was coming, I was like, we did it, right? But now I'm thinking back onto it. I'm like, that was a pretty miraculous thing we just pulled off there. Now we got to do it again, and the opposite way, which is kind of not what it was designed for. But now I guess it'll have to be. I don't know.
Yeah, at least now you have a little experience as far as what to expect on the way back, for better or for worse, I suppose.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. And then yeah, the burn was like a little less snow. I was like mushing on rocks and sand, which is kind of cool. I don't know. I liked it. I prefer it to the glare ice on that river. That was not. That was a little. You can't control where you're going. You're just on a river with zero traction, and the dogs, like, it's good to have the booties off their feet so they can get as much traction as they can. And then, you know, they're pulling one way, but your sled's just like sliding down like the opposite way. So now they got to pull that sled like back up, but they don't have that much traction. And so you're just like, you can't like steer, and you just feel totally helpless on that river, and you're just hoping you can make it through that section. But and then going up to the burn was like pretty much like a couple dozen miles with a dusting of snow at most. And it was not that bad because it's mostly uphill. But now we're gonna go back, and it's just a dusting of snow. Like, you can't dig into the snow and get a brake, and, you know, brake your sled. Gosh, use your brakes of your sled without the snow. So going down those hills is gonna be squirrely.
Yeah. Well, and you know, interesting, for our viewers at home, you know, you may remember that Sean subbed in last year for Jeff King, kind of at the last minute due to some health concerns for Jeff. And this year he's running a team out of Dallas Seavy's kennel. So tell us a little bit about the team that you have that you're working with.
They're an amazing dog team. I'm privileged to have run this race 2 years in a row with some super talented dogs. And, you know, Dallas had a pool of 2 dog teams, and he picked what he thought were going to be Iditarod winning dogs. We'll see how that goes. And I took the next best group, which is not that far off from that caliber of dogs. And sometimes it's just a dog had a tightness, or a dog like broke a nail or something. It's like not much that separates my team from his team. The biggest difference between my team and his team is me and him, because people ask, like, what makes Dallas such an incredible musher? It's like his dog team is obviously like a really good dog team, but it's like his like racing strategy and like ability to know like what's best for the dogs, how long the run should be, and how long the rest should be. Like, that's what makes, from what I've noticed, at least in my humble, you know, few years of doing this, is that he just gets what the dogs need more so than the raw talent of the dogs. And he could maybe take a team that's not as talented and perform better because he has that connection and that vision to see what, you know, what the dogs need and how they're going to be able to pull off this task as efficiently as possible. My dog team has that same talent, but I'm still kind of, you know, I've been doing it for 5 years, not 25 years. So I'm just, you know, erring on the side of caution when it comes to, all right, do we want to have a 4-hour or a 6-hour rest? I'll probably pick the 6-hour rest, and it's secretly because I want to sleep another 2 hours and not get up after a 30-minute nap, but it's also for the dogs too. But it's like, come on, it's mind-blowing because I'm not like dilly-dallying around. I busted my butt to get here today, and I'm in like 30th place, and it just isn't crazy that there's 30 teams doing this faster than me, because it's like, it's just such a competitive group of people and dogs, and yeah, it's crazy.
So you and Dallas are both 24ing here in McGrath right now, and I saw you were chatting with him earlier. What's it like to have your mentor here in the checkpoint with you and be able to chat?
That was pretty funny. I'm like literally like 10 yards away from him, and he came out to like fiddle around with his sled or whatever, and he was talking to Yor, who's also conveniently parked right next to him, and they're talking about how they're going to beat each other or whatever, and he was like, yeah, you know, I have this one dog, he's just like, he isn't eating as much as I want him to eat, and like the Yor kind of ignored him a little bit or whatever, and then I was like, which dog is it? And he was like, oh, hey Sean, good to see you, buddy. And he didn't know I had been parked next to him for an hour or two. And anyways, yeah, I just got to hear, you know, how his race is going, and he's got all 14 dogs. That's awesome. And I think he looks like, you know, trail hardened, you could say. When I look at his face, I'm like, man, yeah, he definitely takes, that's what it takes to be a first. Not to say that he's an ugly guy, okay, he's a good looking guy, okay, just saying he got like chapped lips, whatever. You might want to put some chapstick on. But I might want to put some chapstick on too, I don't know. I'm sorry, Dallas. Jeez. But yeah, he's a good dude. I'm happy to work for him, and I'm rooting for him, and it's fun to kind of hear about what's going on in the front of the race. You know, with 2 days out on the trail, you don't really know what's going on, and you come back and it's fun to see. It's like fun to be here with all the like competitive mushers that are in the top 10. Like I was literally parked next to like Jesse Royer, Yor, and Dallas, and I'm like, why am I in this group right now? But it's fun to be around.
It must be fun also to be parked next to somebody who intimately knows your entire dog team, right? I mean, he knows all of your dogs, so you can talk about them with him.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was kind of talking about his team, and I know all his dogs super well, and he knows mine, and so yeah, we were just kind of talking about who's who in the group, and he's like, yeah, pretty much the same dogs that you would expect to be crushing it are crushing it, and the dogs that made the team that were fringe dogs are, you know, doing how you expected them to do.
Sure. Well, we better let Sean get some sleep. He hasn't had a chance to get any rest yet. But before we let you go, would you like to say anything to anybody back home watching?
Of course, yeah. Thanks to I want to say hi to my mom and dad and grandma, Brandon and Jessica, Gerald and Kaylin, and I love you guys. It's great to, I hope that you're watching, and we'll see you in a few days. I love you, and we'll see you soon.
All right, there you have it. That was Sean Underwood here on Iditarod Insider Live, and I'm Liz Rains here in McGrath. We'll be bringing you some more of these live interviews in the hours to come, so stay tuned in for that, and thanks so much for joining us.